Guess what, everyone? We are back with yet another SEC 2021 early predictions video. Today, we got the Kentucky Wildcats. I tried to put some kind of blue on. I have the nice Blue Jays, new blue jersey back there. I don't have anything Kentucky because I'm a big South Carolina fan. I know I got a Penn State hat on. I just root for them. I'm not a big Penn State fan. Just have the hat, and I thought it would match well or whatever. But let's get into talking about Kentucky in this 2021 season. We're going to go over a recap of last season, go over their gains and losses from in between seasons, and then go over their schedule and the wins, losses, and toss-ups I have for these Kentucky Wildcats. And if you watched this channel before, especially if you're a Kentucky Wildcats fan, I don't want to beat around the bush and I don't want to lie to you guys, but I think we all have this team that we're just really hard on, and that team for me is the Kentucky Wildcats. I am way harder on Kentucky than most people are, and I don't give them the credit that they do deserve sometimes. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand it. It might be because my dad growing up, he was a Kentucky fan, Kentucky basketball. So I kind of grew up. I wasn't a huge supporter. Like, he wasn't a massive Kentucky supporter, but I did grow up watching some Kentucky basketball. And it might be like I have the same feeling about North Carolina. Even though Kentucky plays in the SEC and they go up against South Carolina in basketball, I like Kentucky basketball. Same thing with North Carolina. I like North Carolina basketball. Both of those football programs I don't like. It might just be because I feel like they're basketball programs and I don't like, or it just doesn't feel right in my mind or whatever when I see them in the top rankings as football. So I have to be honest with you guys straight off. If I come off as a bit hard on Kentucky, it's just who I am. It's just how I've been. So I'm going to try to be as completely non-biased as possible in this video. Kentucky's had some great years. Like you look back at 2018, they beat Penn State in the Citrus Bowl in one of the best seasons that they've ever had in a while. Had a top 10 overall pick in Josh Allen, and you also had Benny Snell, who was an amazing running back and continues to be a good running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kentucky produces, they don't just produce on the court, they produce on the field too. And Kentucky's got a pretty good football team. So let's break it down. First off, going through their 2020 season, because this was a team that started off at the beginning of the year ranked. I didn't think that they would finish ranked because, first of all, you only had SEC, ACC, and Big 12 teams as the Power 5 teams who were ranked. Big 10 and Pac-12 had not entered at that point. I think Kentucky was like 23rd in the nation or something like that. Start off losing to Auburn, then they lose to Ole Miss in overtime. I remember watching that game. They beat Mississippi State, they beat Tennessee, then they lose to Missouri, lose to Georgia in what was a very low-scoring, boring, just bad game for Georgia. You beat Vanderbilt by 3 in a very, very close game. Then you get absolutely clobbered by Alabama, which who didn't get clobbered by Alabama this season other than Florida? Everyone got their fair share of serving from Alabama. You lose to Florida 30-40-10, and then you beat my South Carolina Gamecocks, which they were the better team in that game. I can't even lie. I can't make up some excuses on why South Carolina lost that game. Kentucky was way better team, way better. And then you finish off the season with a Gator Bowl victory against NC State. That's a pretty good season for COVID and everything for a team, in my eyes, that I predicted to be a lot lower than they were. I think I predicted them like 5th or maybe even 6th in the whole SEC East last year. Obviously, I was wrong about that. They finished 4th in the SEC East. Obviously, that's not like top 3. That's not anything that's going to really make you open your eyes. But in my opinion, Kentucky put together a pretty good season for the roster that I thought they had. They were better than I thought. The only games, again, this might be another reason why Kentucky, for me, I look at them and I'm like, I don't think this team is any good. I don't have that much exposure to them. Like, I cover SEC. I usually watch the biggest games in each and every week. So just hit a cowbell. I don't know why I have that on my desk right now, but that's awkward. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll cut back. I was talking about why I'm a bit biased towards Kentucky and the fact that I cover SEC football. I usually watch the biggest games of the week and all my South Carolina Gamecock games, obviously. And Kentucky just doesn't get that media attention that they get in basketball. They just don't get that national attention that you'd see other teams like Alabama. You see teams like Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, teams like that get the media attention. So it's kind of like those teams are forced into my mind that I have to pay attention to them. Kentucky's a team that just slips under the radar, much like I think Missouri last season, Missouri was a really good team. They just didn't get the media attention that they deserved, and that's why they were a team that like shocked a lot of people last year. Even though they had a very, very talented team, The only games of Kentucky I watched this season, I remember watching the end of the Ole Miss game. I watched the Florida game and then obviously the South Carolina-Kentucky game. So it's not like I watched an overload of Kentucky games. It's not like this is a team that I know super, super well. I got a glimpse at them. I've watched lots of highlights. Of course, during all the games you constantly see, during all the games on SEC Network, you see, update down in Lexington, Kentucky, or update down in Knoxville. Kentucky's picked off Jared Garantano a bunch of different times, and they are taking a huge lead against Tennessee. Like, I see the highlights, I see what's going on around the league, but it's not like I'm dissecting and watching Kentucky football every single Saturday, 24/7. It's just not what I do. So, going on from the 2020 schedule, let's get into their 2021 schedule. Let's bring that up right now because they got a slate cut out for them. They got some decent opponents, but it's definitely not the hardest it could be for an SEC schedule. There's some teams that have much harder schedules than Kentucky, but nonetheless, they got a pretty good stretch in here. So you start off Louisiana Monroe at home, then you go Missouri at home on September 11th, then you go Chattanooga at home on September the 18th, then you go to Williams-Brice to take on my Gamecocks on September the 25th. You got October 2nd at home versus the Florida Gators. You got October 9th at home versus LSU. You got October 16th taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. That's going to be in Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia. Then you got your bye week on the 23rd. The 30th, you go on away to Davis Wade Stadium to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Then you're back home in Lexington against the Tennessee Volunteers. Then you're back away on the 13th to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Back home for November the 20th to take on the New Mexico State Aggies, and then finishing off against your in-state rival away at Cardinal Stadium in Louisville, Kentucky. And then maybe, who knows, I throw this in for every team, but we don't know yet. December 4th, the SEC Championship. Could we see Kentucky get back there? I don't think that it's that likely, especially with teams like Georgia and Florida in it this year, but who knows? Who knows? There was a spot last year, like if you look back 2 years ago, Kentucky was one win away from Georgia from being in that game. So, and that wasn't a team that like people predicted to be in that spot at the beginning of the season. So we all have no clue. That's kind of the interesting thing about SEC football is you have surprising teams each and every year who really shock you. So Kentucky could be that team this year. Moving on to talking about their losses, who they lost, and then who they gained this season and who they need to step up and everything. So obviously you look at losses. You look at the guys like obviously your quarterback, Terry Wilson. He's going to be gone. You have Rose, one of your running backs. I think he was the second best running back for Kentucky behind Rodriguez. He's gone. And then, of course, your big loss, in my opinion, has to be Davis. Like, you look at the guy who is your defense, basically. He was a top 10 player in the SEC last year. He was one of the best defensive players in the best conference in all the SEC. The kid could play, and he's going to be a huge miss for that linebacker position for Kentucky and a huge hit to the defense, which played decent last year. Like, other than games against like Alabama and Florida, who are offensive powerhouses, you allow 14 to Georgia. You allow like Tennessee to 7. Obviously, Ole Miss was a good offense too, so they ran up the scoreboard an awful bit. But like this defense wasn't all that bad, and they had one of the best scoring defenses in all the SEC. I think it was like the third best scoring defense in the SEC last year. On top of that, you're also losing Bohanna on the defensive front, so that's going to be a huge loss for you in getting pressure on the quarterback. But you know, Kentucky's defense, I think that their defense has really helped them in the coming years, like the past couple years. And I don't see like losing players. Yes, it sucks. But if you have the coachability and you have the same coaches around constantly coaching up this same style of play that you've been playing the last couple of years, I might just be spitting nothing right now. But because, again, I'm not that educated on Kentucky. I don't follow Kentucky as much as you Kentucky fans probably do. But I think Kentucky definitely has the right pieces, if that makes sense, the right coaches or whatever, just going from what they've shown the last couple of years that they could still be putting up. They still got some great players on this defense. The linebackers, you got Wright and you got Square and you got Tisdale, who are all going to need to step up this game because you're losing the massive hole with Davis going out to the NFL and probably being a top prospect in the NFL, in my opinion, one of the best linebackers in the draft. Those guys have got to fill that hole. You got to have Pascal, you got to have McCall, and you got to have Rogers, especially McCall. He's the big guy. He's going to be the guy who's replacing Bohanna for Kentucky. He's the guy who's going to have to get to the quarterback. And really, he's not going to have to. He's just got to put the pressure on the quarterback because he's the nose guard. He's the nose tackle. You're going to be the first because when that offensive lineman snaps the ball and you're on the nose guard, if you're the nose tackle, your pressure that you put on the quarterback is going to be right in his face. That's going to make him panic as soon as that happens. So McCall is going to have a really, really big impact for how Kentucky does this year defensively. You look at offensively, who's going to go in at quarterback? Is it going to be Bo Allen or is it going to be Gateway? I don't know yet. I'm not educated enough to make this decision. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think it really matters at this point because Kentucky has never really been in the last couple of years a passing threat. They're more focused on the running game, and as they should be. They got a very good offensive line, very experienced offensive line, and you got a really good running back in Rodriguez too, who had a very, very good season last year. You look at the amount of touchdowns rushing to the amount of passing touchdowns that Kentucky had last year. I think it was 19-7. You have 19 rushing touchdowns, and you have 7 receiving touchdowns for Kentucky. This is a running team. The quarterback, yes, it's going to be important, but as long as you're able to stick to your identity of the rushing game, whoever you throw in there, as long as he can be a system guy and make the passes that are crucial, this offense isn't going to change that much from last season. Even though you do lose Terry Wilson and you do lose Rose, you still have Rodriguez, you still got your main receiver in Ali back, and then you got your tight end in Upshaw, who led the team in receiving touchdowns last year with 3. So the core of this offense, in my opinion, is still there. The offensive line is still there. The rushing game is still there. The passing game, the receivers and everything is still there. It's just that quarterback position. And in my opinion, he doesn't need to be some guy to go out and go throw 30-plus touchdowns this season for Kentucky to be successful. This is a rushing team, and I think that they got to own that identity. Let's go take a look at Kentucky's recruiting class this season. They finished 12th in the SEC in recruiting right now. I think Auburn was before. So if you watch my Auburn video and you're like, no, you said Auburn finished 12th. I'm filming the Auburn one I did before signing day. This is after signing day. So now Kentucky has 4 4-stars coming in. They got Burton coming in, an offensive guard who is the 10th best offensive guard in the country. First in the state of Kentucky, so they're able to recruit the state really well. You got Magwood coming in as the 86th best wide receiver in the nation. You got Lovett coming in, safety, 3-star safety, 54th best in the country. Then looking back at some more of your 4-stars, you got Trayvon Wallace coming in, the 9th best interior linebacker in the nation. Then you got Crowdis coming in at wide receiver, the 49th best wide receiver in the nation. And then finally, you have another wide receiver, Christian Lewis, 55th best in the nation, 11th in the state of Alabama. Seems like wide receiver position is going to be stacked for the Kentucky Wildcats in the coming seasons. You're bringing in a linebacker, 4-star linebacker. That's going to help. This class, though, isn't enough to compete with the big boys just yet. You're going to have to recruit way, way more than that if you want to be up there with the big boys. Like 12th in the SEC. The class is decent. Trust me, I take this class over what South Carolina has right now because we have the worst class in the SEC right now. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to get rid of any of the players that South Carolina has right now because I think we got some great guys still. I just want to add way more depth in. To take 4 4-stars for Kentucky, maybe this is just me being a South Carolina fan. I wouldn't be complaining about that. Wins, losses, toss-ups. The moment that you've all been waiting for is now here. So let's get into that. Let's pull this up on my screen because this is what has been getting me the most hate or the most love, depending on what team you cheer for. And I feel like people don't listen to me when I talk. So that's why people just see the graphic and they take the graphic for what it is. That's why I had to put the percentages down below so I can explain myself and people will hopefully listen to me. Those percentages mean the amount of confidence I have in that team to win. So you look at the wins. The win category, those are games that I feel like I'd have over a 75% chance or 75% chance of confidence in Kentucky winning that game. Toss-ups, I go anywhere from 74 to 26. Really, that I was going to do 70 to 30 because that's what I mean. But then if I did 100 to 80, I was going to do then 70 to 30, then 20 to 0. You would have been like, oh, you completely missed some percentages, Noah. Like, what are you doing? This looks like a joke. So I just had to make the number weird just for it to even out. So that's my toss-up category. And then losses are games that I have 25% or less confidence in Kentucky to win that game. Starting off with the wins, Louisiana Monroe, Chattanooga, and then New Mexico State. You got two group of 5 teams in Louisiana Monroe, and then you got New Mexico State, and then you got the FCS team in Chattanooga. Actually, no, New Mexico State might be FCS now. So I think that New Mexico State is FCS. So you have 2 FCS schools, 1 group of 5, and then you obviously have Vanderbilt going through a new coaching situation. Vanderbilt is not a good team. They have the second worst recruiting class coming in, and they don't really have the talent on that team. So I think that Kentucky has that game, even though they go to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's never really had a home field advantage that I would worry about. So I'm taking Kentucky in all 4 of these games with over 75% confidence in all of those. Toss-ups. This is where it gets confusing. This is where I have to explain myself to you guys that I'm like, okay, this game is worth this much, this game is worth that much, and this blah, 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 blah. So you get it. Missouri, Florida, more looking at the Florida, because Florida fans were so mad at me that I put this in the toss-ups, but honestly, I don't think I can mark that down as an automatic win. You got the game at home for Kentucky, and I think that Florida's losing a lot of weapons. Lots of Florida fans, even though I supported Florida fully last year, they really, really did not like me after I put that game in the toss-ups, but I have a 70% chance confidence in Florida winning that game, but if Kentucky won this game, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. That's why I threw this in the category. Missouri, I think that that's a 50-50 or maybe 60-40 for Missouri in that game. South Carolina, I think is a true 50-50, and that's not just me being biased. Louisville, I don't know. I don't watch enough Louisville football to have an opinion on them. The only Louisville game I watched last year was the Miami-Louisville one, so I'm going to say that's a true 50-50. I take Kentucky over Tennessee, so that's probably 60-40, and I take Kentucky over Mississippi State, and I'm feeling that at like a 70-30. So those are my toss-ups. Those are my breakdowns for my toss-ups. LSU, Georgia, they get LSU in a really, really bad stretch. You go to South Carolina, you play Florida at home, and then you get LSU, and then just after that, you have to travel to Athens, Georgia. I think that game just gets caught up in a bad situation, and a game where you're going to be looking ahead to that game in Georgia. And I think LSU is actually going to be a decent team this year. They're going to bounce back. So that's why I have that as under 25% confidence in Kentucky. And then Georgia's Georgia this season. If you watched my preview, that was the last game that I had for them, or that was the last preview or prediction show I did for them. I think that they're going to be really good this year. So best case scenario, worst case scenario, and realistic. Let's get into that. Worst case scenario, I think you have this team at what? 5-7. So that means you take all your wins, you take one of the toss-ups, because I think that they'll definitely take one of those toss-ups, and then you lose the rest. Realistic games to win for the toss-ups: Mississippi State, Tennessee, South Carolina. I think if they were to win just one of those toss-up games, it would definitely be those 3. Best case scenario for Kentucky, I think you go for 8-4, maybe 9-3, reaching at 9-3. Like that's. You have high ceiling, and then you have punching through the ceiling. 9-4 is that punching through the ceiling for Kentucky. And then lastly, realistic. I'm going to go 6-6. 6-6, you take all your wins. You win at least 2 toss-ups, and then you lose the rest. You make a bowl game, you're happy. So thank you so much for tuning into this video, guys. That is my Kentucky preview for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you are a college football fan, a Kentucky fan, because we do lots of SEC content, do me a favor, hit that like button and hit that sub button down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and definitely come back next time.